Welcome to another episode of Insights with Experts, where we aim to foster discussion, learning, and creating an informed global community. To view this and other interviews in detail, head over to insightswithexperts.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the episode.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Insights with Experts. Joining me here today, I think for the first time ever, this has to be probably the 65th interview that we've had. I think it's the first time I've ever had a guest that is younger than myself. I'm here today with the awesome Marko Stravou. Now, Marko is one of Africa's top teen entrepreneurs and Gen Z speakers and a podcast host at only 17 years old. Now, in 2019, at 15 years old, Marko generated over 1,000 plus thousand in revenue, offering a digital PR service within just 3 months. Currently, Marko is the co-founder of one of the leading Gen Z business communities in the world called Hustlers Global, and they're essentially helping Gen Z entrepreneurs build and scale their businesses faster with less money. He consults corporates and other organizations on how to really better connect with their Gen Z consumers and employees. In addition, Marko loves presenting, speaking, which has also meant that he's also been able to achieve wonderful things, such as hosting Africa's #1 Gen Z podcast. His passion to transform the next generation have led him to create multiple businesses and work with some of the top brands worldwide. Marko, I hope I got everything there. I know for a fact I did not, because I can tell you that probably since the time you wrote that, you've probably done some amazing things since then. Firstly, I'm just going to ask you, you're on the other end of the world right now. How are things over there?
Absolutely. I'm sure I'm not only your youngest guest, but I'm your first one from South Africa and Africa. I don't know if that's true.
I think it is. I think it is, mate.
So this is going to be an episode of new insights and new thinking. And I'm really, really grateful to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. And I'm brilliant. As I just mentioned before, had a nice little trip to Greece recently, kind of just getting my mind sorted for the fourth quarter and putting some things in place and reflecting, getting my mental health in a place where I can really drive. You know, when you're working on computers and engaging with people, like sometimes 60 to 70-hour weeks can be really, really hectic. And so definitely took that time to spend relaxing and rejuvenating.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think even I myself, I'd been overseas. I'd had a vacation something like 2.5 years more. And I recently found myself in Europe. I was there for about a month, came back. And I think you're absolutely right, mate. Just having that reframing of your mind, taking just a foot off the gas, relaxing. When you come back, you just feel so much more rejuvenated as a whole. That's what I found, mate. But I couldn't agree more. Now, I quickly went through who you were. I gave a quick overview, but I think what would be a lot more interesting is if you actually told us about that journey. So, what did that entire thing look like? Where did you start? How did you move from A to B? I guess, what did the journey look like?
Absolutely. And I'm sure when you're reading that, half of your audience might not believe it, and the other half may think that this young guy is just saying a bunch of stuff and that's not true and there's no ways. And so, yeah, definitely kind of share from my own perspective. I'm currently 18 years old and I've been in business for the last 3.5, almost 4 years, which means that I'd had to start in high school, right? And so my first ever business was selling fidget spinners, which was a big craze, as well as sherbet, so the sweet sherbet. And I started at 13, just selling to some of my classmates, and then they eventually actually took off. And I was at a stage, I had 12, there was 800 people in my high school, and eventually I had 12 sales reps just selling in different classes and different grades. And that was my first real sense of business. The reason why I started that, I still can't answer that today. I have no idea what drove that, besides from possibly just interest and money and maybe an internal thing that kind of got ignited through that, which then led me to actually the online. And so I was first introduced to Instagram, it must be like 3-4 years ago now. I interned for some companies in the US, gaining a bit of experience, insight into marketing funnels and sales mechanisms and how to run social media ads and campaigns. Really just learning from specific agencies that I worked for and intern for free. So yeah, that's kind of, if you're thinking about where this all started or how do I start, that is my answer. It's really small with basic things. I say selling sneakers and selling sweets, and then just reaching out. I just reached out through Instagram and connected with a bunch of people, and that's how which led to the internships and the jobs. And then from that was just an explosion. And then at 16 years old, I like to use the word dropped out, but I just left my high school and decided to do kind of like a homeschooling Cambridge program, which then obviously allowed me to really elevate as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. That was quite a scary decision. But yeah, I wanted to really scale the company, which is called Hustlers Global. And that's the one that I had started with a partner, a friend that I'd met in high school. And today it's still running and doing really, really well. And as you said, I'm doing a bunch of other things.
Mate, that's awesome. And I've interviewed so many entrepreneurs, and they one thing in common is that they all tell me the story of how they started, and when they're in high school, when they're in uni, something like that, they all had some kind of small side hustle. Our former CTO at Oracuri, probably one of the most entrepreneurial people I've ever met in my life, and when I was in the same high school as him, and he started up this online thing where, because everyone lived in that school, it was a closed boarding community, and he set up something where students could order food into that school. It was sort of like this mini Uber Eats in Malaysia, and it just like it was amazing. And I've read this thing, and it's almost as if every entrepreneur, they have that inherent drive. Even no matter how young they were, they've always had that inherent drive to be entrepreneur, to sell, to speak to people, to, I guess, move forward in some kind of way. Did you find, like, even when you're in high school, even when you're selling fidget spinners, sorry, did the skills you learned from that, are you still using that now? Did did that help you?
100%. 100%. And the
Mhm.
reason is, one is confidence, right? So when at that stage I was 14 years old and I was going up to last year students who were twice my size and were 18 years old, and to teachers and having to deal with teachers who were not happy that I was running this business. So number one is self-esteem and confidence, which is something you can't really train or buy, right? You have to just go through it and build that character up. And so that was number one skill that was really, really important for me. And the next thing is just the art of articulation and sales, right? And so I was having to deal and navigate and negotiate with people and try and sell as much as I can, and with the sales reps and commission. And so, like, even today, with the partners and affiliates we've set up, with the sales calls that I do, all of that has led me to this point. And so when I have conversations with young people and they're like, Marko, how do I get to the way that you speak? Or how do I get to the confidence level that you're at? Or how do I be able to examine a business in a certain way, or set up a campaign in a certain manner? That is all through that training, right? 3.5 years ago. It didn't just suddenly come. I actually did a recent LinkedIn post where I said, like, please do not be like disguised and intimidated and faked out by what you see on social media, because who I am today is through 100+ sales calls, is through I also ran a podcast where I did over 100 episodes, right? So like all of that is where I'm at, it's allowed me to get to this point. And that's why the saying, it takes to become an overnight, it takes a decade to become an overnight success, right? And so I really, really resonate with that saying.
No, 100%, absolutely. And I say this quote, I can't even remember how many times I've said this quote, but if you want to learn entrepreneurial skills, if you want to learn soft skills, emotional intelligence, EQ, it's like learning how to swim. You're not going to do it in a classroom, you got to do it in the pool. You just got to roll your sleeves up and just get stuck in. Just get yourself out there. I mean, I've said it so many times, and I think it's absolutely true. And that's exactly what you yourself was speaking about then. Now, towards the end of you explaining that whole journey, you talked about Hustlers Global, and as you said, it's doing very well at the moment. But maybe to all the listeners right now who have no idea what Hustlers Global is, can you maybe give us a brief overview? And I guess what as a Gen Z listening to this, what can they get out of it?
Absolutely. So the problem that we're solving is the problem that me and my business partner face and continue today to face, which is there is not a area, economy, environment, place where as a young business owner, as someone who's as interested in entrepreneurship can go to connect to the right people at the right time. So that may be investors, that might be co-founders, that may be clientele, that may be mentors. And so we, as in South Africa, it was really, really hard for us as young people to gain the necessary network and information. And so I had to then have a podcast and reach out to people in America and, waste a whole bunch of money and time buying courses and trying to figure this out. And so what we said is we wanted to create an all-in-one platform and community and membership where we host events, where we have Gen Z entrepreneurs, because it's great for me to go to someone who's 50 or 40 and ask for advice, but do they really understand what I'm going through mentally, emotionally, as well as like at that point? No, they don't, right? And so half of them don't really care. Whereas me and you, Sean, we care about each other because we're the next generation. And this relationship, I could move to Australia tomorrow, right? And so there's that connection that is so important. That's how we built our. It started as a publication where we just did a bunch of interviews and a bunch of articles and put out content and engage with the youth. And then, which is now developed, where we've launched a membership where you can apply and join. And then it has all those benefits, which I just mentioned.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. And I mean, I couldn't agree more in the sense that we're at this point of all learning from each other. We're all looking out from each other. The whole fact, the whole idea that this podcast is even happening here, it's only happening because we ourselves were doing an event where we were helping each other out, where we were helping fellow Gen Zs out. There you go. And by the way, from that event, the feedback I got, not just from Gen Zs, but from older people as well. I think just the fact that they were listening to people, yes, that wasn't that conventional 50, 60-year-old CEO. I think just makes a huge impact. So I think you're absolutely right, mate. Now moving forward, speaking of that event there, that was the first time I ever heard you speak. And I loved the story that you told, and I loved it, and I want everyone hearing this right now to hear that story, because I thought it was great, and I think anyone can take away a lot from that story. That's how you got into the Henley School, and how you leveraged your personal brand, as you said. So, if you don't mind, mate, let's hear it.
Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. To learn more about Orakui, as well as more information about our upcoming episodes, don't forget to follow our socials for constant updates and education content. Links are always in the description.
Absolutely. So the story that you're referring to is when I had now dropped out of this private school that I was a part of. I then decided to matriculate through Cambridge and I did my A levels. And at 17, I then left. And I was then now contemplating, which is such a big decision. I hope that we can dive into, because a lot of people that are listening are facing, which is going to university, right? And so at the time I was running a business and I was deciding, do I go this traditional route? Do I step into this environment? And me contemplating, what does that look like and where to go? I found Henley Business School, which is actually a part-time degree. It's a proper undergraduate degree in management, but it's part-time. And so I was really dedicated to really investigating this opportunity to go to this university. The problem was that it actually focused mostly on postgraduate. And also there was a lot of requirements when it came, not from an academic point of view at all, but more from an experience point of view. And so you needed 3 to 5 years minimum work experience. You had to be managing people. You have to be in a business environment. And so I was very concerned about that. And when I reached out to the director, it was a total no-go. And they said, yes, it's not going to happen for you. And so, as you can imagine, you take this big leap of faith, and now you're running a business. And for me, I valued Henley Business School and the education that they were going to teach me, and not these other traditional institutions. And so, I took this step where I reached out, and I totally got, denied and smacked away. And then I was like, okay, Marko, you've been different your whole life. why not try a different method of getting into university? And so at the time, I had already established an Instagram, I had a LinkedIn going, very crap content, I must admit myself. I hadn't had the capacity to put out quality and at a large scale, but I had something, right? And so I actually stalked and found the dean of the university on LinkedIn. It was like him posting with his family, and it was like a very informal account. And I sent him a voice note, and the voice note went like this: "Hey Jonathan, hope you're well. My name is Marko. I'm a 17-year-old entrepreneur, and I have a publication and podcast, and I would love to do an interview on you, just to the next generation, and get your advice about university and as a dean." He responded saying, "Absolutely, I'd love to set it up." We set up the call, and at the end of the podcast interview, I quickly just briefly mentioned, say, "Hey Jonathan, by the way, I'm actually looking to go to Henley University next year, possibly, but I reached out and I haven't heard anything back, and there wasn't a positive response. I want to get your perspective on that." And he actually picks up his phone while we're on the call, and he phones the director that I had emailed and says, "Hey, I'm here sitting with Marko Stravou, and he says to me that you haven't gone back to his email. Is there a reason?" And she responds saying, "Yeah, because he's too young and doesn't have experience and blah, 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 whatever." And so then he actually goes onto my LinkedIn profile and start reading out my experience that I had wrote there about interning at the different companies and engaging with all this content, and I was doing with Hustlers Global. And he says, "No, he's got all this experience, he's worked at these companies, blah, 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 you must accept him." And so he put up down the phone. He said to Mark, "I want to accept you and I want to give you a scholarship." And yeah, that's basically the story of where I'm at today with Henny.
I mean, one question I have in my mind is, was it worth it? Was going to university worth it? Because as you said, big question when students leave high school. Should I go uni? Should I get a placement? Should I get an internship? Was it worth it?
I think just to answer your question in two ways. Personally, for me, it's worked out really, really well. At the same time, we look at opportunity cost, which means that for the time that I'm spending, I could be spending somewhere else, right? And so the reason why I chose Henny is because of the part-time schedule and the flexibility that it offers. Like, I've been able to travel to London and various other places because of it. And normally, in all those environments, other universities, it would be exam time. And so my specific structure that I've chosen is aligned with my business and with what I'm building. And there's the thing about, answering this question, why I decided to go to university, because, I didn't have to go. And it's basically is, why not, in terms of network and information? I'm already running my business, right? So it doesn't hurt me to spend a few extra hours a week learning from some really cool lecturers who are professional speakers and actually real business people, who are and then gaining access to the network. A lot of my classmates are all in corporate companies. There's been consulting gigs that have come out of it. I've been helped with contracts. And so I had nothing to lose. And so stepping into that, I said to myself, let me go at least try it, to say, okay, cool, I was given it a shot, didn't work out, the opportunity cost is not worth it. And, I'm going to go now full-time into my business and not study. And I think that's the tricky thing is, for people listening who are about to make this decision, I would say two things is, don't make a decision based on your parents. I've got 5 cousins at the moment studying CA, accountancy, and all 5 of them are not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for their family and their parents, because their parents said so. And because some psychologists say that they're very good at mathematics, right? And so I made this decision, this Henny decision, purely based on my own desires and my own thinking. My parents did not, they're not influenced me in the decision. And so I'm accountable. And that's also partly the reason why I'm enjoying it. A lot of young people don't enjoy university because, as I just said, they make decisions based on what other people say. And so if you do not know what to study, or if you're not 100% sure about university, for me, it's really worth spending time in a reflection period. And the problem with high school is they don't give us that time. And so I was so frustrated about high school because I was working so hard with sport and work and trying to balance it all. And I had no time to think about, who's Marko Stravou and what does he love and what am I actually passionate about and who do I want to serve? And so I if I had to make a decision when I was 16, I would have no idea about what I want to study or what I want to do with my life. But because I left and gave myself a year to think about life, to go and experience and travel and engage with different people, I was like, because for a long time I wanted to be a lawyer until I went to a law firm, and I was like, this is absolutely hell, right? Like, I don't want to do this. And so I really encourage people to just reflect, ask those questions, but then go and experience the world. And even if it's that 3 months before university starts, or apply to different courses, but you don't have to commit to them. And it's actually okay. And the problem, I don't know if you are aware of the word gap year. A lot of people use it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's used a lot.
I've been shutting down that word, and I'm changing and rephrasing it to learning year, right? Discovery year, because people say gap year, but when your parents or another person hears that, it's inferior. When actually, for me, it's superior, because the person is being very intentional about where they want to spend the rest of their life, and not just rushing into a course or rushing into a destination because they want to get a great job and they want to make a lot of money and they want to impress their friends and they want to impress their parents, right? And so for me, that learning period, that discovery period, whether that be a year or 3 years, is significantly important for the rest, and that changes the rest of your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I was speaking at an event about, was it six weeks ago now, and it was with Pearson College over in the UK. And they asked the exact same question. They wanted to essentially know, like, what value do students see in university? How can we get more students engaged in university? And I mean, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that it's about reflection. It's about tasting what's out there, and I think it's about exposure at the end of the day. And here's the thing, right? I myself am at the University of Melbourne at the moment, and I'm learning economics. Now, the economics subject I'm doing now, I'm going to learn that a decrease in the marginal tax rate is going to increase aggregate to demand next week, or something like that, some kind of law. If I went to Henley Business School, if I went to Cambridge, Oxford, and if I studied economics, they're going to tell me the same law. I'm going to learn the same economic content. There's a finite amount of knowledge out there, whatever degree you take. What separates another student's university experience from another university experience is not necessarily how much knowledge you retain, but in my opinion, it's the exposure. It's what you do in those 2, 3, 4 years while you're there. How many people are you talking to? How many people are you networking with? Are you going down to your professor and having that 5-minute chat with him or her after the actual class, saying, "Oh, can you tell me about this? Oh, why are you teaching economics? What made you want to go into it?" It's those little things. It's networking. It's exposure. It's tasting, not just the knowledge in uni. And I mean, I think, as you said, absolutely reflection. Now, going back to this event, actually, after I gave that answer, the question I got hit with straight afterwards is, "Well, Sham, you talk about uni like you really enjoy it. I don't think that's the case for so many students. How can we engage more students? How can we make more students enthusiastic about university?" I gave my answer, but I want to hear yours now.
Absolutely. And before I quickly answer, I just wanted to be contradictory to people. We just said, university has a great opportunity. And to answer possibly, because there is a side of, there's impractical information, it's old school. And a lot of young people might be saying, like, I'm making so much money with e-commerce, or I'm making so much money with TikTok, like there's no point for me to go to university. And the biggest thing I hear is like, oh, I can learn all of this on YouTube. But will you? Because the people that I talk to who say that, they are not going to spend hours every single day like we would when we be studying economics on YouTube, learning, studying, taking notes, analyzing, evaluating, implementing. And so to say, oh yeah, I can go learn on YouTube, there's only, I don't know, 2%, even 1% of people that can really dedicate that time to studying, to doing courses, to finding mentors, to setting up coffees. And it's most likely not going to be you. And so if you need a structured environment where you can go and learn, even if it's impractical, even if it's old school, just gaining new knowledge, because knowledge is power, but applying the knowledge is even more powerful. But you first have to have that knowledge. And so even as a basis for later things to come, if you look at the most successful, I've done studies on some of the most successful VCs and investors, and most of them at least spent a year at university, and the biggest subjects are law and computer science, right? And so those all today, if you ask them, not even from the networks, all played a very significant role in who they've become as a leader and their knowledge in a real business sense. So I just wanted to add on to that. But to answer your question, is the problem is most universities have the wrong lecturers. Most of the lectures are totally boring. Most of the information is impractical, right? And so I've been very blessed at Henley that they've got a certain, not perfect, but there's a certain level of a new age studies and innovation, and get lecturers who are actually, as I said, in business, who are actually working for companies, and then they're providing up-to-date stuff. I think also these learning environments, I love some of the projects that I see happening at Stanford. I want to do my MBA at Stanford. They really encourage like the students to go out into San Fran and go to like Silicon Valley and go and spend time in companies and do like case studies and so like go to Google, intern at Google and then do things like that. So I think universities need to think of new ways to engage students, whether that be like traveling or doing things in person or like adding to new incentives, but then also like get feedback on the lecturers. Don't just hire the same lecturer that's been there 10 years because they've got 5 degrees and they wrote the content. Like get young, innovative, exciting lecturers that people are also wanting to learn from. Like one of my lecturers, his name is Sipiwe Moya, and he's like one of South Africa's like best public speakers. Like it was, for me, it was like an honor to be in the room with him. And so imagine like they could get, like a university could get Gary Vee to be a lecturer, or Simon Sinek, or whoever that may be. Like people would be excited, they'd be honored to be at that university. And it doesn't have to be at that scale, but I just think like if we can get new and exciting lecturers involved, I think that the retention and the excitement will increase.
No, I absolutely agree. Do you think that, I guess in the past, 5, 6, 7 years, we've had this new age of social media? Is that having any effect on how we view lectures, how we watch content in university? And I mean, I'll give you an example, right? Like in the past 2, 3 years, we've seen the average piece of content, right? Students used to go to YouTube, and that's probably like 15 minutes long around there. They then go to Instagram, and like the max video was about a minute. So now the attention span has decreased even more. Now, if you go to like TikTok and stuff like that, it's now at 15 seconds. And if you don't capture a Gen Z's attention in 15 or 5 seconds of the video, they're just going to swipe down and find the next one. And now it's almost as if Gen Z, young people have become so accustomed to just short pieces of content that deliver snappy pieces of information. Then when they turn to university and when they then have to listen to a 50-minute lecture of someone talking about law, economics, science, or anything like that, they just aren't as engaged. Is that do you think that's having any effect right now in the education system?
Absolutely. And I think that the structure, as I mentioned, needs to change. You can't have 50-minute lectures. You can't have 2-hour lectures. You've got to have 15, 20-minute segments, right? Quick, engaging information, do a bit of a Q&A, get the questions answered, get the information that the people don't understand, move on to the next one, revert back. And so 100%. And I think not only is that going to change, but the value of university and education is really changing. Because before I mentioned, you can go to university, YouTube or whatever that, people say they're going to do that. But actually, you can learn so much on YouTube, and companies are now more interested in work experience and are now more interested in other practical skills that you've built out, whether it be editing or coding or whatever that may be. And so I think the value of degrees is shifting. And that's also why we see the stats have shown that 45% post-COVID now of people are reconsidering their careers. 45% of people are reconsidering their careers because they understand that the world's changing and that the way that their parents got jobs and the way their parents earned income is not going to be around much longer. And so for both of us, it's quite scary in some ways. And that's why we're seeing, all of this is linked to anxiety and depression, right? Exposure. We have never been exposed to so much information and the news and everything happening on social media. There's no wonder there's anxiety, right? How can a 12-year-old mind be listening to the Ukraine war, facing COVID, facing divorced parents? They can't function. And so there are so many things that are occurring because of social media, both positive and negative. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting world we're living in.
I agree. And then I think on that note of social media, there's a whole idea of this new thing. It's called social comparison theory. And it's not just that I'm now looking at what's happening on CNN and the news and everything happening in the world, but I'm now looking at what my friend's doing in the south of France. I'm now looking at when he goes to Santorini or anything like that. And what social comparison theory is it goes down to a very, very simple but famous experiment. When they gave two monkeys food, they gave one monkey the less tasty food, which was a carrot, I think, and then they gave the other monkey a grape. And when they gave that one monkey a carrot and when they gave the other monkey a grape for days and days and days, neither of the monkeys complained. They were both content with what they got. But then when they gave the monkey that was receiving the less tasty food, the carrot, a grape for one day, the next day that they gave both those monkeys the original food, the carrot and the grape, the monkey that had originally had the carrot but just had a taste of grape, the second he had the carrot again, he threw a fit, he went absolutely crazy because he now has something to compare that carrot to. And you take this piece of psychology right here, and you put it into what's happening with social media. Now, when I scroll through Instagram, and when I have a look around myself, all I see are a bunch of people eating grapes. No one is going to post the dull, boring, or down moments of their life. They're only going to post the best moments when they bought a new shoe, when they're off in this amazing place in the world, when they're in Santorini, when they're doing all these amazing things. You're only hearing the best news, even on LinkedIn. If you want to lower your self-esteem, hop on LinkedIn for about 10 minutes and just see what everyone's doing. That's social comparison theory. You have all of this right now around you. Have you found that's a thing yourself?
I've been affected myself, and I've obviously evaluated working with teens and environments and schools have significantly seen that, right? And so I think that comes down to self-worth. Where are you putting self-worth? Is it in other people's opinions? Is it in, goods and tangible things that are defined by other people, such as money and success and all that? And so I've really tried to focus, and it's terribly hard, but I've really tried to focus on just who I am and not compare myself and not let my definition of who I am and my success be by other people and be by the world system and be by what society says, and more on saying, these are my personal goals, these are my personal ambitions, this is what I define success by, this is what I define by significance by, and let me be led by that. And also my environment, my close circle of friends, like the people that I follow on social media, like I pretend that I really care what they think, but I don't really, right? And their content as well. The people that if something goes wrong tomorrow, they're not gonna be the ones that I'm phoning for help. And so the people that are real, and my family and my friends and my close circle, like those are the people that I need to be putting all my energy and being consumed by, and like saying, hey, if I'm getting on the wrong path, those are people that I want to be listening to. And so I think that's really, really important. And speaking on that point, most teenagers, if you ask them how many close friends they can trust and they have, it's max 1 or 2. And it's a very, very sad reality, because even in high school, like all my friends in high school were fake. When I was doing well and I was up, it was Marko, let's go out and let's do this and let me engage. And when I was down, it's like I didn't get a single message. In fact, when I left that private school, I got messaged by 2 people twice the whole year. I'd been at the school for 10 years and 2 people reached out and 2 people engaged with me. I had dozens of friends and I was part of first teams and sport teams and the rest, right? And so it's a very sad reality, but at the same time, by your listeners listening to this show, I'm hoping that they're going to be aware that, like, hey, find those 1 or 2 people that believe in you, that trust you, that are going to be good influences, and do whatever you can to preserve those relationships. Because in a time where there's despair and where there's fear and where there's anxiety and where, as you said, there's judgment, you need those people more than ever.
I couldn't agree more. And I think just you saying that message in the sense that, know your value, know who you are, know what you independently define as success for yourself, I think is so important. Now, speaking of success, I wanted to talk about your actual recent in-person event, the one that you just hosted. I saw that on LinkedIn, and it looked pretty amazing. So I just wanted to ask you, I guess, tell me all about that. What was it like? If I'm not wrong, it was your first one. And what did you learn from the entire event?
It's been a dream of mine. I don't know where it came from. I suppose the first business event I ever went to was with my uncle, and like I was the person under like 30 there, and so it was a very weird feeling. But as soon as I went to that event, I was addicted. I'm a big networker. I love connecting with people. I believe I'm a connector, and so events are very special. And since hosting a podcast, I've also identified the power of hosting, which is that you can get anyone, have a conversation with anyone through that, whether you host a podcast or you host an in-person event. And so the event was both for a very strategic reason for Hustlers Global and to gain new clientele and to gain new strategic partnerships. But at the same time, it was also because it's such a joy in my life. And so Hustlers Global did distribute a bit of a budget. But to tell you the truth, the whole thing was totally sponsored by every connection, through connections that I had in my network. And so the hotel where I hosted it at, they were launching their co-working space, and I reached out to them and said, hey, I'd like to help you launch this. We had a meeting. 20 days later, they were sponsoring the event and they were the main sponsor. The media company that did all our content, that did everything, they were a sponsor. And then a bunch of different friends and people that I knew in my network also sponsored. And I think just touching on that point is the power of outreach, the power of my personal brand, because that's the only thing that I could use that trust me. I have never hosted an event, right? And so a lot of the sponsors who didn't come on board with us was because, hey, we don't trust that the event will work out. We don't know it's going to work out. There's no guarantee. And so at 18 years old, and the reason why I've only hosted an event now is because it's almost impossible when you're under 18 to sign contracts and to deliver and like put it together. And so it was a bit of a tricky, reaching out to sponsors and engaging. But again, just the power of email, right? Cold outreach, the power of LinkedIn, my personal brand and reaching out. And so it's quite unbelievable that I was able to sponsor that event and put such little overhead into it. And then also the impact that was made, right? So we had 48 plus entrepreneurs gather at the event. We wanted to keep it really intimate, and we had 7 speakers, and we had like a blackjack table, and we had some stands and real engagements and real conversations. And the big thing that for me, which is really important, is we go to some of these events where there's like 200-300 people, 400 people, and we exchange business cards, but then that's where it ends, right? And so for me, it was about connecting real leaders and real young people. It had to be under 30 years old. Some of the speakers, just slipped that, maybe 31, 32, but most of the people were under 30. And it was a fantastic night. We got great feedback, and I'm excited to host another one soon.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I like when you spoke about the fact that when you turned 18, everything became so much easier and so on. I wanted to ask, when you do business, when you host events, when you see people, when you talk here, when you talk there, do people treat you like you're 18? Has that ever been a challenge, or do they? I mean, I guess has it ever been a challenge in your life? I guess your age.
Absolutely. 150%. it has been a challenge, and in many ways a disadvantage in some areas. But then it's also been the greatest thing, right? And so I've leveraged it as much as I can in terms of getting guests on the show, in terms of getting clients, in terms of everything. I think the difference is people who don't know me and don't know what I've built and haven't been exposed to my personal brand. It's a very different conversation. But people who have been exposed and do know what I'm about and do know my experience and do know that I'm real and I'm authentic and that I actually, have built and I know how to put systems in place, they respect me. And so I just find like trying to get to that exposure level as quick as I can is very helpful. And so like even when I deal with any sales call, they've already been pre-framed and primed to have that authority. But it's very challenging when you meet someone for the first time and they have nothing, they don't know you at all, and they see that you're young. It can, I've been told to piss off, to fuck off many times, and because the person just doesn't see the value, which is totally fine. And I think in the beginning I got very hurt by it and offended by it, and would blame my age and blame myself. But then I learned to leverage it, and I think my message from this for young people is the people that really care about you and that are going to want the best for you and they're going to be good clientele and that are going to be good partners, they're not going to care. People that that disrespect you and show an issue for your age, you don't even want those people in your life, right? And so I for a long time was just chasing every client I could and chasing every opportunity, and now I've got to the point where it's like, if you respect me and if you value me and if you want to work together, then that's great. And if you don't, and if you think I'm a Ponzi scam and like, I just talk a bunch of crap, then that's okay. And I have nothing against you, but I don't want to let your negativity influence the good work that I know and other people have reaffirmed that I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's not, I mean, not just with age. I mean, we live in a society where there's so many factors people hold where unfortunately we just can't change. And yes, you can either victimize yourself and complain about it, or I think, you can find ways around it. You can keep moving forward as you've obviously done. You can make something out of it. And I mean, I think just the way you explain that as well is really, really cool. Now, it's moving forward. We've talked about this in-person event, which obviously is a huge success. I want to know what's next for you, not just in a literal, I guess, what events do you have next, what projects, but in addition, what goals do you think you've set for yourself, I guess, in the next 5-10 years? What do you want to achieve?
I have my goals right next to me on the wall, but I think they've changed quite a lot. I think when I would say like a year ago, they were quite literal and like, these are different. Like I want to, get featured in Forbes 30 under 30 and like, have this much money in my business, and they're quite in that manner. And I think as I've matured and experienced life in a different way, they've kind of shifted more. And I was part of this rush paradigm. I call it a time paradigm, which most young people are in, which is, okay, how can I make money the fastest, and how can I be the youngest person to do this, and how can I reach this level, and how can I be better and compare myself to this other young person. And so I've totally broken away from that, and that again is linked to social media, but where I'm like, my goals and my values and the things that I want to achieve are not set on that at all, and they're not to compete with other people and to compare myself to other people, rather what I really value. And the things that I really value in terms of goals is, number one, impacting these entrepreneurs that I'm really working with. Like I genuinely care about young business owners not going through the difficulties that I went through and spending all the time and money. And so really scaling the membership and scaling Hustlers Global to a level where it's, because again, Hustlers global, right? We want to impact entrepreneurs from all around the world, and we've set up our company and our service in a manner that we can do that. And so really putting things in place and seeing those results is really important for me. I don't have a set number or in terms of a tangible figure for that, but I know I want to do it at a large scale and really see real results in that. And then I think that the next thing is I'm really passionate about investing and businesses. I love scaling business. All my books and the books that I study are not self-help, because I feel like I've got to an emotional and mental standard where the next step is going to be through experience that I'm going to grow, right? Dealing with employees, and not through reading words. The books I am studying are very tactical and strategic marketing, sales, and investing books. A gentleman that I would really recommend that everyone studies is a guy by the name of Alex Hormozi. And he wrote a book with 100 million, and it basically talks about how he scaled multiple companies to 50 million plus. And so, yeah, I really have changed my studying habits to very tactical and strategic, so that one day I'm sell Hustles Global in the next 5 to 10 years. And then I would like to start my own fund and getting into the angel investing in VC world, hopefully.
Well, there you go, man. That's lots of exciting things there, which I'm sure you'll achieve. And I mean, I can't wait to see more and more, honestly. So yeah, I'm just looking at the time now, and it's usually around this time where we end it off. And how we end off every single interview is we ask the exact same question. I've asked it 65 times now, and I'm going to ask it again. And what that question is if you could leave young people today with just one piece of advice, what would that be?
Such an amazing question. I might actually steal it if you don't mind. But I actually have so many answers that I was when you sent me that question, I was thinking about, like, I have so many things I want to say and so many messages. But I think the most important thing, personally, if I just reflect on my life, that has been, I've seen the greatest results and the greatest transformation, is just this paradox about self-esteem and defining success, and like not breaking away from judgment, and not being affected by other people's opinions, and not being affected by my parents insecurities and perhaps perspective on that it wasn't going to work out. And so I really believe that if young people can get to a place where they have full conviction in their abilities and understand what are they passionate about and what they love doing, that's a very, very powerful place. Because right now I can tell you I'm the most aligned that I've ever been, because I know every single day when I wake up that I'm impacting people, and that I'm excited about not only the good things in my business and my work, but also the challenges. If you can be excited to face the obstacles and challenges in your life, then you know you're really in a powerful place. And I'm so saddened to see so many young people unable to face the day, right? Whether it be in a high school setting or even a university and job setting, they have so much anxiety and they have so much unhappiness and unfulfillment with what they're doing. And it's all up to them, right? They made those decisions. Your parents did not make the decisions. They influenced you to make the decisions. But at the end of the day, you're the ones who made the decision. And so we have one life. There's a 1 in 1 trillion chance that you were born, right? And so please, if you are unhappy right now with your circumstance, if you are unhappy with where your life's going, take a step back, say it's okay to be imperfect. I'm not comparing myself to Marko, who is in alignment. I'm comparing to myself to where I'm at, and that's okay. And I'm going to put things in place to radically change my life. And I'm going to start with reflecting on the basics. And once you've got those basics, partially, because they're never 100%, even myself, I don't really 100% know what my purpose is in the next, could be right now I do, but in the next 10 years I might not, and my passions and my love and the things I want to do. And so just get those basics in place, and just be so grateful about the opportunities that the world presents, and do not be disheartened by the bad things that are happening in your life and in the world. And yeah, that would be my final message.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. Marko Stravou. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, check him out. go onto Hustlers Global, go into his LinkedIn, go into his website. We'll put anything that you want Marko in below. It'll be in the link below. Check it out. Check the guy out. He's awesome. Marko Stravou, thank you so much again. And that has been an episode of Insights with Experts.